This video explores how this battle shifted the course of Roman history, ultimately leading to the rise of the Roman Empire. The Battle of Actium was a decisive confrontation that occurred on September 2, 31 BCE, during the final war of the Roman Republic. This naval engagement had profound historical significance, leading to the establishment of the Roman Empire and altering the course of history in the Mediterranean region. The context of the battle involves the political and military struggles of the late Roman Republic. After Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Rome was plunged into a series of civil wars. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir, Mark Antony, his general, and Lepidus, another ally of Caesar, initially formed the Second Triumvirate to defeat their enemies, including the forces of Caesar's assassins. However, this alliance eventually broke down, leading to conflicts between Octavian and Antony. The prelude to the Battle of Actium was marked by years of political and military tension, as the leading figures of the late Roman Republic, Octavian, Mark Antony, and Cleopatra, were caught in a struggle for power. This period was dominated by the aftermath of Julius Caesar's assassination and the division of power in Rome. Meanwhile, Octavian consolidated his power in Rome, where he began to present himself as the defender of Roman values, positioning Antony's alliance with Cleopatra as a threat to Rome. Antony's relationship with Cleopatra was both political and personal. He had several children with her, and she was a powerful ally. In 41 BCE, Antony and Cleopatra met in Tarsus in modern-day Turkey, and Antony was drawn further into Egypt's politics. His dealings with Cleopatra, including granting her territories and influence, aroused suspicion and hostility in Rome. Octavian used this to portray Antony as a traitor to Rome, accusing him of seeking to make Cleopatra his queen and ruling alongside her in Egypt, rather than as a Roman general loyal to Rome. The propaganda war in 32 BCE leading up to Actium, both Octavian and Antony used propaganda to gain public support. Octavian spread rumors and accusations about Antony's relationship with Cleopatra, portraying him as under her control and distant from Roman interests. He even accused Antony of neglecting Rome's welfare in favor of Egypt. In contrast, Antony, although less successful in propaganda, presented himself as the rightful leader of Rome's eastern territories. Octavian declares war on Cleopatra in 32 BCE, when Octavian convinced the Senate to declare war on Cleopatra, not Antony. This strategic move allowed Octavian to frame the conflict as a war against a foreign queen, rather than a civil war against a Roman general. This shifted the focus of the Roman populace away from Antony and Cleopatra as Roman traitors and toward defending Rome from a foreign threat. As tensions mounted, both Octavian and Antony began to prepare their forces for a confrontation. The Battle of Actium, fought on September 2, 31 BCE, saw the forces of Octavian, commanded by Agrippa, clash with those of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Both sides had substantial fleets, but their strength and strategies were different, contributing to the outcome of the battle. Though Octavian himself was not a military leader, he was the overall commander and strategist. His primary general, Agrippa, commanded the fleet. Agrippa is a brilliant naval commander and Octavian's most trusted general. Agrippa was instrumental in Octavian's success, particularly in naval engagements. The fleet size of Octavian's fleet consisted of about 400 ships. His navy was well organized and disciplined, with smaller, more maneuverable vessels. The fleet was composed mainly of warships, including smaller, faster ships that could outmaneuver larger vessels. Agrippa's fleet was known for its efficiency, as it was better trained and more agile compared to Antony's larger but less flexible fleet. The fleet carried about 80,000 men, including both sailors and soldiers. Octavian's forces were also supported by troops from the Italian provinces and his loyal supporters in the Senate. Agrippa's leadership and expertise in naval warfare gave Octavian an advantage. His fleet was better equipped for combat, with a focus on speed and precision. Octavian's fleet had positioned itself in such a way as to limit Antony and Cleopatra's ability to maneuver effectively. They used their superior knowledge of the terrain and controlled the area around the battle. Now about the support of Senate, Octavian's propaganda had convinced much of the Roman Senate and people that his cause was just, making his forces more cohesive and loyal. Although his rival Antony was an experienced military leader, his relationship with Cleopatra and his reliance on Egyptian forces led to instability within his ranks. Queen of Egypt, who was allied with Antony. She commanded a separate part of the fleet, which was composed largely of Egyptian ships. Cleopatra played an important role in leading the fleet and supporting Antony, though her forces were not as well integrated into Antony's overall strategy. Antony's fleet was larger, consisting of about 500 ships. However, many of these ships were poorly equipped and not as agile as those in Octavian's fleet. The fleet included both large warships and Egyptian vessels. Cleopatra's ships were often larger and more impressive in appearance, but were slower and less maneuverable. Antony's combined forces, including infantry and cavalry, numbered around 100,000, but his naval forces were not as well coordinated or battle-ready as those of Octavian. Antony and Cleopatra underestimated the tactical skill of Agrippa, who used superior strategy to disrupt their formations. Agrippa employed superior tactics, focusing on speed and maneuverability, which allowed him to outflank and trap Antony's fleet. He used smaller, faster ships to harass the larger Egyptian and Roman ships in Antony's fleet. During the battle, many of Antony's ships defected or retreated, weakening his position. Some of his commanders, possibly disillusioned or swayed by the prospect of favor with Octavian, abandoned their posts. At a critical point in the battle, Cleopatra's fleet, which had been part of the force, withdrew from the engagement. Antony, in an attempt to follow her, also broke off from the battle, leading to confusion and ultimately the collapse of his forces. While Antony and Cleopatra had a larger fleet, Octavian's forces, led by Agrippa, were more tactically superior, well coordinated, and better prepared. The defection of key elements of Antony's fleet, combined with the strategic blunders of breaking off the engagement to pursue Cleopatra, resulted in a decisive victory for Octavian. Octavian's victory effectively ended the civil wars that had plagued Rome for decades and led to the collapse of the Roman Republic. Establishment of the Roman Empire. With Antony and Cleopatra's defeat, Octavian became the undisputed ruler of Rome. In 27 BCE, Octavian was granted the title Augustus, marking the beginning of imperial rule. The battle also led to the fall of Egypt as an independent kingdom. Following the defeat, Cleopatra and Antony both committed suicide, and Egypt was annexed by Rome, becoming a Roman province. This marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt. Octavian's victory allowed him to secure a period of relative peace within the Roman world, known as the Pax Romana. With the internal strife concluded, Rome could focus on consolidating its vast territories and expanding its empire.